back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio, and thank you for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. Don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com and the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com. And just my couple of quick announcements, the 2011 ASPE Paranormal Symposium, October 25th through 30th, Taos, New Mexico. For information, it's ASPEsymposium.com. And the History, Haunts, and Legends Conference, November 5th in spooky Jefferson, Texas. The website is jeffersonghostwalk.com. So in this hour, we're going to be speaking with Marie Jones, who's been on the show before, and she has yet another new book out. This one's called The Trinity. But let me tell you a little bit about Marie, and we'll get her on and find out what's with this three thing. Marie Jones has spent 15 years as a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, a.k.a. MUFON, in Los Angeles and San Diego. She currently serves as Director of Special Projects to ARPAST, the Arkansas Paranormal and Anomalous Studies team. She recently appeared on the History Channel's Nostradamus Effect series and 30-odd Minutes television with Jeff Belanger, who has been interviewed on hundreds of radio shows all over the world. Marie is a highly regarded and popular speaker on science, metaphysics, consciousness, and the paranormal, and has appeared at major conferences and events around the world. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Marie Jones. Hi, Marie. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to talk to you again.
Nice to talk to you again. So I heard through the grapevine, we were kind of talking about this in the last hour because we had Scott Roberts on, that you weren't going to be able to make, and you don't have to say why, but that we weren't going to get to meet your body at the conference, which
I know.
We're both bummed.
I'm heartbroken, because I would have gotten to meet you. I would have gotten to see Larry again. I would have gotten to meet Scotty. No, I will actually be in Las Vegas, but not for fun. I'll be visiting with my dad, who's been in a sort of temporary hospice and is now in permanent hospice and, not doing real well. So the next couple of weekends, we're going to, my sister and I and the other kids, we're going to get out there and go. And it was just, one of those things where I had to just make that choice. And it was really, really depressing because I really wanted to meet you guys. But I assume there'll be other conferences. They're better.
There will. And that's a good choice, so...
Yeah,
and I'll ask my listeners to, send good energy, send, a healing thought to your dad. Because,
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard whenever family, you feel an obligation to work, but your family has to come first. And I've had to pass on a couple of big things this year because it's just been unbelievably touch and go. My dad has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which is very rare, but just an awful, awful disease. And so a few months ago we thought that was it, and then he kind of pulled back a little, but now it's pretty much taken the whole body. So, I will definitely be there in spirit, and,
But we'll have Larry,
going on.
So that's good.
Yeah, I know. I really wanted to see him again, too, because I usually only get to talk to him on the phone and email. So, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and I know that... a lot of us are really feeling the need to do conferences with people that we really like or want to hang out with. So I'm trying to think about that, too. It's like, okay, now who's there that I'm going to want to hang out with?
And for the people listening... And for the people listening, Larry Flaxman is the co-author of Trinity, as well as a number of other books that Marie has written. And so Larry's going to be there, so it's not like her material is going to get left out or passed over. And actually, I know Larry's body very well because he lives in Arkansas, so we tend to do a lot of local conferences together.
Right. Oh, you guys have Jefferson coming up, too, which I always say I want to come out for, but it's always at, the worst possible time of year for me. But, fun.
But it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Maybe the April one.
Maybe. Marie,
yeah.
I have to ask you, other than yet another book, but this is the question. What's going on with the number thing? You had 2012, you have 1111, now you got the Trinity. What's going on?
The funny thing is I never really cared for numbers or thought about them very much, except for the fact that I couldn't stand math. And when Larry and I were approached to write 1111, which was our first book together, it was really funny because we got on the phone and we thought, a book about time prompts and numbers. But through the research and writing of that book, it really was kind of mind-blowing how we were exposed to the fact that numbers are the language of the universe. I mean, the language of the universe is mathematics. The symbolism of numbers is something that we as human beings respond to on a very subconscious level maybe, but they are just so much more profound and mysterious and a part of our lives than we've ever imagined. And that really led to writing, the Trinity Secret, because we kept running across that number 3 everywhere. So we thought we got to revisit this for a later book, and we finally did.
Well, and I think when many people hear the words the Trinity, the first thing that comes to mind is the concept of the Christian Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
Right. Exactly.
And this book, is that really what we're talking about, or is it something deeper than that?
It's much, much deeper. In fact, that concept is predated in paganism, in ancient Greek and Roman philosophy and spiritual or metaphysical beliefs. Both of us, after we did the research, it was very obvious to us that Catholicism adopted the Trinity symbol from, cultures that understood the profound nature of 3 before it. The problem with the Christian version, though, is that it's never been quite explained. There's an awful lot of debate, especially with the Holy Spirit element, which we call the middleman. So you could see what happened. They adopt this symbol, this Trinity symbol, from paganism and earlier traditions. Then they have to try to twist it and mold it a little bit to fit Christianity, specifically Catholicism. And there was a lot of difficulty in doing that. But this idea of 3 being a code of creation, if you will, a process, even a persona for God, if you want to think of God as being creation itself, it's ancient, far more ancient than Christianity.
How far back in your research did you find references to a Trinity?
We went pretty far back in terms of what written records, I guess you could say, are available. And one of the most interesting things is to see, in the Hermetica in Buddhism, which is far older than Christianity, and different religious traditions that predate Christianity, mythology like Roman, Norse, Greek myths. You've got this in creation stories of the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Mesoamerican cultures, the Mayan, the Aztec, etc. So there's an awful lot of it, and I think really it shows that people who are observational, people who looked around them, even at just the way things operated in nature, understood that there was this nature of 3. So if you're a primitive culture and you're looking at how nature operates, and something as simple as, earth, sky, and water, or birth, life, and death, there are different ways that you're going to be observing this idea of a threefold process in nature. And then, of course, when the written record began, we started writing about it, and philosophy took over and religions took over, and here we are today, and we even see it in scientific concepts and in consciousness and the different parts of the brain. It's just everywhere.
So you were mentioning that it is found in other religions. So I'm just going to pick one. You mentioned Buddhism. So how does it show up in that religious tradition?
Well, every religious tradition has some kind of grouping of either gods or goddesses or some kind of divinity of threes. In Buddhahood, my gosh, there's like the Trikaya, which is the 3 levels of Buddhahood. There is the, let's see, oh my gosh, they actually have their own Trinity, and it's described as Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, which is very similar to ours, but with the take that in Buddhism, the idea of karma and right action is very much a part of their tradition and their beliefs. Oh, let's see, where else? The 3 jewels, the 3 treasures of Buddhism. It's everywhere. They've got even the more the Jains. I'm not sure how you pronounce that one section of Buddhism, but they've got their own trinity too of correct insight, correct knowledge, and correct conduct, which to them represents body, mind, and spirit. So there's all these little triads everywhere, and the same thing in Hindu, and even Islam is one where it gets a little bit trickier. I mean, they have a trinity. You know, they're considered a Western tradition, but they're a little bit trickier. They tend to kind of do their own thing, and they actually have one trinity that includes a feminine aspect, which I thought was interesting because in more Gnostic Christian concepts, their trinity includes Sophia, which is wisdom, as part of the Trinity. So even women got to be in on it back then before everything got changed. Yeah.
That's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, really. But, you know, it's funny because throughout the goddess traditions and paganism, you have the maiden mother crone aspect, you've got the 3 stations of the moon, and you've got all kinds of references to the Trinity knot, and it's, you know, so paganism obviously gave up a lot of their beliefs to the traditional religions, I think in many cases by force, but that's kind of where they came from. They really do have a lot of pagan roots.
Do you find the same thing coming out of mythology from around the world as opposed to just religious traditions?
Well, you do, because I think that mythology was our way of trying to explain through stories what it was that we believed about the world. You know, so you've got different, the power of myth. Joseph Campbell writes a lot about the fact that the Trinity symbolism is present in every single mythology. You've got groupings of gods and goddesses. You've got stories in mythology that it may involve 3 different levels of how creation came to be. You've got beasts with 3 heads. You've got gods that had to have 3 challenges that they overcame. And what's interesting about that, too, is that carried over into folklore and fairy tale, which is just rampant with 3. You've got, you know, 3 little pigs and 3 bears and 3 billy goats gruff and 3 wishes and 3 challenges and 3 kittens, and everything comes in 3s. And a lot of that came from the stories in mythology. The way that they grouped gods and goddesses, it was like each one took a different aspect of the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit aspect, but they wanted to sort of combine them into one deity, which was kind of hard to do. So yeah, we see it everywhere. It's prevalent in every religion, every mythology. But I think our favorite thing was when we got to see how it works in folklore and fairy tale, because we always think of fairy tales as being pointless, and yet they were very profound ways of teaching wisdom, and still are, to anybody who reads them.
And can be spooky.
Yeah, they are.
Hansel and Gretel can give you a complex.
Violent. The Grimm, oh my gosh, what was wrong with those people? Oh, they're like nightmares, you know. But they
maybe those are the stories they
really
told
did.
around the campfire. You know, like we tell ghost stories now. Maybe they told those kind of stories to just scare the bejesus out of their kids.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, you know, moral lessons. Don't do this or else. Look what happened to this little girl out in the woods, you know. Or Hansel and Gretel when they ran away from home.
I hated that one. I cried.
I hated all of them. Oh, they were awful. They were so. Even as a kid, I could feel some underlying sinister element to these damn fairy tales. It's like a little girl that goes in this place, where 3 bears live. Wasn't she afraid of being eaten when they got home? And, I was always asking those bigger questions, of course, but.
Of course. One of the things that you find in a lot of ancient traditions, in addition, and I'm throwing this out, I know you're smart, so I'm sure, if you don't know, you'll make up a really good answer. But it's also the concept of the number 4. And those are like the 2 numbers that you tend to see over and over again, or multiples of 3. Do you have any
absolutely.
comments about that?
Number 4, interestingly, the only and maybe because we weren't looking at it specifically too much because the book focused on 3, but the one place we really saw the number 4 be more prevalent was in the Native traditions, Native American traditions, because a lot of their beliefs are obviously based on nature and the observation of nature. And so you've got the 4 winds and the 4 corners of the earth, etc. So 4 to them was a very profound number, much more so than 3. I don't recall seeing it anywhere else, but again, we weren't really looking for it. But now multiples of 3, that's a different story. In fact, multiples of 3 are everywhere, and what that means is that if 3 is a profound number, when you amplify it, it obviously adds power to that. So if you're talking about something like, let's say, 666, which we all know is the number of the beast, or you're talking about 333 or 9. 9 is actually a much more powerful number because it's 3 times. So a lot of people look at 9 numerologically as being a very, very powerful sort of master number. But again, it all comes down to this fascination that we have in this realization, even again, like I said, if it might be subconscious, that 3 is important to us.
Mhm. I mean, when people ask some weird question, I always just say 3. Doesn't matter what the question
the answer is
it's
3,
like,
and if you don't get
3.
it, you just don't get it. Yeah,
that's right.
That's a great one. I'm going to try that. Somebody asked me a really complex question about quantum physics, and I'm like, huh? Oh yeah, 3.
3. Or God made it that way. That's my other, kind of answer.
That's a good one. That's just the way it is. Yep, there you go.
Do we find, the number 3, we've talked about religion and mythology, in our daily lives, the things that we interact with, and I'm going to say more on the physical plane, do we run into 3s too?
I do, and this is what's funny. I have for a long, long time. I awake every night at 3:33. Okay, and I did last night. Only last night I got up. I thought, okay, something's going down here. I want to see what it is. And of course, nothing happened. I ended up going back to sleep. But people have time prompts like it's 11:11 and 1:11, but 3s are very popular. If somebody sees 333, 1 or 2 times, they may not think much of it. But after a while, that becomes a very profound time prompt. Now, what I was told is that 333 is the time prompt of alien abductions. And I had heard that, too, when I worked in MUFON years ago, but I never thought anything of it because I never felt like I'd ever experienced anything like that. But after a while, boy, you really start to think, why do I keep waking up at this time? Is my brain just programmed? And that's the other part of numbers, that they can be very symbolic to us. Numerology, we like to find out what our master number is, and even in astrology, the times that we were born. But, it also could be our brains just wanting to apply meaning to something. If we see something a few times, we think of it as being synchronistic, but it may have no meaning other than what we apply to it. So there's both sides of that story. But I think for a lot of people, they have dates that they feel are good luck, or numbers that they feel are good or bad luck. Friday the 13th, 666, the number lucky 7. We have just adopted all these different beliefs based on numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did I lose you?
Well, I couldn't
Hello?
hear you, so I was like, can you hear me now?
Oh, no. I can hear you now.
Well, I couldn't hear anything, so I was like, well, I'll just be
no.
quiet.
I was talking. You know me. I just talked
Yeah, I
on
know.
through.
Well, that's why I just wasn't worrying about it.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, no.
I was just, watching my switchboard going, okay, am I going to get hung up on, or are we good?
Technology.
Shh, I'm not supposed to say that word anymore when I have little consistent failures.
the T word, right?
The T word. It's like, it's all good. It's all good.
Oh, how funny. Yeah, I think it's me. I really do.
I have to tell you, I had a cell phone, the last cell phone number that I had, and I picked this number, but I had the opportunity to have the number with the last four digits, 6660, and so
how funny.
And my phone was red, bright red. And so I'd call my friends up, like my cool friends like you, and I'd be like, give me a call, blah, 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 sign of the devil, 0. And I'd get these phone calls like, what do you mean? So I'm like, mark of the beast, sign of the devil. And they're like, oh.
Oh, that is too funny. But you know what's weird? I mean, the number 666 in China is considered like a beneficial number. So it just goes to show you it's all relative, and it's all a matter of perspective and what your traditional beliefs might be about numbers. 7 may be lucky to us. In another culture, it may be the worst number you could possibly be associated with.
Do you have any thoughts as to why 3 has become so popular or important in our culture?
I do, and I think, again, it goes to the fact that the code of creation is really very simple. The process of creation that Larry and I really feel the Holy Trinity of Christianity was trying to describe, it's very simple. It consists of a creator, of creation, and of the act of creating itself. And if you look at the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you could see all three of those aspects. So you see the Father aspect as being the creator, and you see the Son aspect. Christ was always referred to as God made manifest on earth. So you see that aspect as physical creation. The Holy Spirit, again, that real tricky middleman, is the activating agent, the force, the action, the activity by which something is created. So there you've got your creator, you've got creation, and you've got the act of creating itself. So when we began to look at the Trinity from that perspective rather than as a persona of God, which was always very confusing, finally it made perfect sense. And it also made sense as to why it's so important to us. We recognize the process of creation and everything, including ourselves, and we resonate to it.
Uh-oh, lost Marie volume again.
I was
there
talking,
you are.
I just stopped.
Well, and I just was like,
funny.
Lost Marie volume again, and I don't know if you heard me or not.
I couldn't hear you, but I just kept yakking, I'll just fill in the blanks. Oh, that is too funny.
When you talk about creation, I mean, are we talking kind of like law of attraction creation, or are we talking more like a Kabbalistic form of creation, or what are we talking about?
I think it's really everything. I mean, it goes back to even the most primitive origin stories where you had a sort of void of emptiness through which some force or some, creative element reached in and brought out physical creation. And it just seems like no matter what we're talking about, there are three parts to creating something, whether you're creating it in your own life. You start with you as the creator deciding what it is that you want. You end up with what you hope will be something manifesting physically in your life, whether it's a relationship, a job, a new car, what have you. But there are certain actions that you need to take to get there. And those will be things like intention and activity and action. So those three aspects, we see them everywhere in creation stories, but also in our own personal lives with how we create our reality, and that's the law of attraction.
Okay, so I can't hear Marie again, so I'm just going to talk here for a second. But I have to tell you, Spiritual Path 1 in the chat room just posted, "This is wild. I tuned into Blog Talk today because these numbers 333 keep popping up. Smacking in the face, trying to research the meaning, then starts 111 and 111. So thanks for the post, Spiritual Path, and thanks for listening." Hi, Marie.
Hi. Can you hear me now?
I can. And let me just kind of ask the chat room, who they're hearing. Are they hearing me? Are they hearing Marie? Or are they not hearing anybody? And we'll just keep going and go from there.
And hope for the best.
And hope for the best. That's right. So, anyway, so you were saying?
Well, we were talking about the law of attraction. That's
okay, well, I missed that whole part.
Well, everybody wants to figure out how to use it, and it really, again, has to do with three. It is made up of three different elements. You as the creator, ultimately what you would like to create, which becomes the physical creation itself, and then all of the actions that you have to take to do that. So you've got the Father, you're the Father aspect, you've got the Son aspect, which is what you want to create, and you've got the Holy Spirit aspect as the actions and intentions and activity that you need to take in order to get something from nothing or create something out of nothing. Or all. Some people don't like to say nothing. Create something out of that field of all possibility.
Okay, so FYI, so even when we can't hear each other, they're hearing both of us.
Okay,
so
good.
That's a good thing.
So hopefully we're talking about the same stuff. Oh, funny. It's Friday. What are you going to do?
Punt. Wait, I'm going to 3.
3. We'll just say that over and over and call it a day.
That's right.
That's funny. Yeah.
Do we find like 3s extending into science too? Like physics or whatever?
Well, we did, and one of the places that's real obvious is if you look at the human body, the structure of the brain. We've got a primitive brain, and we've got the mammalian brain, and we've got the higher brain. If you look at things like, even the process of nature itself, obviously birth, life, and death, and the way that things come into this world, the triplicate structure of DNA, quantum physics, where you're literally observing something out of nothing and bringing it into manifest form. There are a lot of different laws of 3 that are laws of motion, etc., where there are 3 laws present. And it's not as prevalent, but I think it's there in an even more profound way because nature, science really is all about trying to understand nature and how it works. How everything came to be. And so ultimately, science is about understanding this 3-part process of creation. Whether we're talking about cosmic creation of the universe or the creation of an individual human life, that same process is at work, just on a little bit of a different scale.
You mentioned, and it's something I've never heard of, the triplicate structures of DNA. What does that mean?
What is it, the triple coding of DNA, and it's coded in triplicates. I know, DNA is like strange, but yeah, it's coded in triplicates, triple coded, not 4s, not 2s, but 3s, groupings of 3s.
So like it sequence-wise.
Right. And also, if you think about it, too, consciousness, our human consciousness, there are 3 levels, the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious, and it's there. It's definitely there. A lot of people believe that the reason why is the whole as above, so below, because whatever happens on a cosmic scale is mirrored down below on the human scale. So that could explain that. But, there's like 3 states of matter if you don't count plasma.
Okay, Marie,
plasma. I know.
It's 3:33 Central Time, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah. And, DNA and RNA, they use the triplet codon system, 3 parts of an atom, 3 flavors of quarks. There's 3 dimensions without counting time, 3 means of heat transfer, 3 laws of thermodynamics, all that stuff.
Too many 3s.
There are, and people will say, well, you could probably find that for any number. Well, guess what? Trust us, we tried. and you
not
just
so
don't.
much.
No, you really don't. Not even for 1 or 2. You find, interestingly, quite a bit, but 2 is the number of duality, and the reason why 3 became such a profound number is because it is the number that unifies duality. It's the perfect number. So I think we're uncomfortable with dualities, but if we have, like the yin-yang symbol is a really good example of this. You've got the dark yang and you've got the light-colored yin, but they're encircled in one unified circle together. So that's sort of that third aspect of it. And 3 is the number that brings duality together. It harmonizes it. It unifies it.
Well, and when you talk about things, it is the first solid form. Because
right.
when you have 1, it's just a point, and when you have 2, it's a line. But when you have 3, it's a triangle, so it's the first form, in nature.
By which everything else and that's considered the perfect shape as well. But a lot of the reason why 3 is so important, it really is much more symbolic, and we respond to it subconsciously. So we might see a triangle and really not get turned on or anything, but I think, again, like if you're reading a novel, excuse me, that has a 3-act structure, a beginning, a middle, and an end, you get a very satisfying, hopefully, story out of that. You get some kind of satisfaction out of the way that a story is told. With fairy tales and folklore, the reasons why there are 3s is very similar to that. There's a sense of satisfaction that comes from a story in which somebody overcomes something, not once, because that would be too easy, and not twice, because in a sense that still just doesn't quite, get to us. But 3 times we get it. It's like, whoa, okay. In our language, location, location, location. I came, I saw, I conquered. Words that are either, you have 3 words or they're words that are grouped in 3, we react to so much more profoundly. If you remember, George Bush Sr., read my lips, no new taxes. I mean, there are reasons why in speeches and stories things might be grouped in 3.
Because,
so it's like,
but that's kind of an interesting little twist in, just in our response to having 3 things grouped together.
Right,
that's
it is,
cool.
And a lot of it has to do with impact. There's, in literature, and especially things like playwriting, they call it the rule of 3. And the idea is that the first time, well, let's take something like the 3 little pigs. The first pig is kind of stupid. He's weak, he's small, he represents the inability to really overcome a challenge. The middle pig, a little bit smarter, a little bit more resourceful, but still not quite there. But by the time you get to that third pig, what's happened is you've progressed towards perfection, and this is part of why the rule of 3 really works in literature and movies and storytelling. That third pig is big enough, strong enough, and smart enough that he kicks the wolf's ass, basically, and we are left with a sense of satisfaction and closure with that fairy tale, with that story, and also the fact that, that's the progress by which you overcome a bigger and bigger challenge until, boom, you finally get it. And it's the same thing with the billy goat's gruff, and it's just a real interesting way that how it's twisted itself into our storytelling and our motion pictures and anything that has plays, anything that has a 3-act structure, the way that it affects us.
Well, I
thought that was kind of cool. I
Well,
was like,
hey.
oh, that's why. So from now on, Larry and I have to put 3 of everything in our books?
Yeah. I mean, unless you find out that 4 is really cool.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, because I just think that, like even biblically speaking, 3 and 4 or derivatives of 3 and 4 are everywhere.
Right, right. And yeah, and in 1111, we really did cover some numbers that are all over the map. We looked at the number 7 as well in the Bible, the number 40. So yeah, there are definitely, and again, I think that speaks to the fact that we understand that the universe, that life, that creation, that God speaks to us, and I hate to say this for people that are not science-oriented, but in a mathematical sense, because that's what we get. If everything comes down to number, yeah.
But they say that, it is math is the universal language.
Exactly. And so wouldn't it make sense that that's what we respond to on a kind of gut level or a subconscious level? And I also think, too, about, all this, if aliens ever tried to communicate, what language would they use? Well, they're not going to use English. They're not going to use Spanish. They're going to use, if they're smart and they've observed us, they're going to use the language that they know is universal to us as human beings, and that would be numbers, mathematics, mathematical ratios, principles, you name it, because they know that that's what we're going to respond to.
But how are they going to get their triple venti mocha frappuccino? In numbers.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
They've got the
pictures, I get pictures, sign language, I get, when they say that, they're going to communicate through numbers. Personally, I can't wrap my mind around that.
I know.
Because it's like, how would you get anything you wanted?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Look at crop circles. So many of them have been disproven, but the ones that haven't, the ones that are still, people are scratching their heads over, a lot of them, it's the beautiful symbolism that we may not know what it means, but I think on a sort of subconscious level, we know what it's trying to tell us. So it would be interesting to see if whatever is out there, if it did want to communicate with us, because who knows, maybe they don't. We may not deserve communication, but if they did, would they choose something like, computer zeros and ones, it's and bit kind of dialogue, or something symbolic that we would only really respond to on a subconscious level, because that's where we need to get it, sort of intuitively and instinctually. I don't know. It'll be really interesting.
I do think the concept with the crop circles is really interesting, because people will go and they'll map it all out and, well, this is 2 times the distance of this, and this is on the arc of this, and they, do all these calculations to figure out the geometry of it, and I'm like, okay.
Right, exactly.
That's nice, and that's helping us how? Other than showing that there's intelligence to it, or, it's a complex structure. I get that part, but I just don't get the message part.
Well, and are we ready for the message? Maybe we're sort of, some of us are intended to get it, others aren't quite ready consciously, or, because we're human. Come on, we're always analyzing and rationalizing and left-braining everything to death, and so, maybe those symbols are being understood by small groups of people, and hopefully that will increase over time, but I don't know. Sometimes you look at society and you have to wonder. Oh, my gosh.
Those are the ones that you go, God, they're really out there.
Yeah, really. They'll never get it. Oh, my gosh.
So I have to ask you, it's a little early, but I'm going to change the subject. I heard rumor that there's yet another new book.
Yeah, there is, and we are so on the fast track for this one. It's called This Book is from the Future, and it's about time travel and time anomalies, and really, the book will be out in July of next year, so we don't have that long to get it written. But no, it won't be out for a while. But, I've got a new book on my own, though, without Larry, called Destiny versus Choice, the scientific and spiritual evidence behind fate and free will.
We were supposed to talk about that, weren't we? I couldn't remember which book. We haven't ever talked about that. Talk to me about that, because we have time.
I loved it. Yeah, that was a solo project. I needed to do another solo book for my publisher, and then Larry and I are doing the time travel book as our next book as a team. I just have always wanted to explore the concept of destiny and choice because I felt like both were just really, really, big parts of my own life. I always had a sense of destiny ever since a child. And I had a lot of people recently ask me to write about it as well, which I thought was very serendipitous. How do you ignore that? So I thought, what, I really would like to explore this. I'd like to explore the philosophy, the religion, the scientific evidence. Is there evidence of destiny in nature? The divination systems like astrology. I really tried to cover every single base I could to try to determine if there's any evidence for either or both. And it was really fun. I did. I found evidence for both. I found evidence in each, arena that I looked at for destiny, whether it's philosophy is just insane. I mean, my gosh, do they nitpick everything? But I did. I found, obviously, in philosophy, in all the religious traditions, there are a lot of teachings about destiny, predeterminism, purpose, even fate, which is sort of an extreme version of destiny, but also choice, free will, in the very same religious books. So you've got, say, the Old and New Testament of the Bible. You've got stories throughout that talk about the fate so-and-so had to meet or the destiny of this particular prophet. Yet there's also lots of references as to the choices that they made as to whether or not they were going to fulfill their destiny. So I thought, this is interesting. This keeps popping up. And even in science, for example, a human being, we come into this world with a predetermined genetic structure. DNA determines what we're going to look like in so many different ways, and we can't change that. And yet when it comes to things like personality and character and behavior, choice plays a greater role. So even in a cosmic sense, we see that. We see it in evolution and natural selection. In the divination systems like astrology and numerology, I thought, okay, these are going to tell me that it's all set in stone and you have no choice. And I was wrong because a lot of the people that I interviewed, astrologers, runestone readers, numerologists, they all said the same thing. This is a blueprint, it's a template, and yet you have some maneuvering room.
Yeah, because it just presents the information, and then you can decide whether you want to listen to it or, sometimes, like in astrology, you might have squares or something in your chart, and those are things that you need to overcome, so that you can become a better person. So that would really come down to free will, even though it is your tendency. Uh-oh. I guess Marie and I are just talking all over each other because I'm not hearing her. Oh, I lost her. I lost Marie. Let's see if we can get her back. Hold on. Marie, come back. Come back, Marie. Marie, are you there? Okay, well, we lost her. Okay, well, I'm not sure what to do about that, so I guess I'm going to try calling her one more time. And,
hello?
Ringing. There you are.
I got cut off. Oh, my gosh.
Well, I was, talking and going, Marie? And then I thought, we're probably talking all over each other.
I know.
And then I looked up
and
and you're not there, and I was like, okay, well, I'll try calling.
I was talking all about the book. I went on, and then I stopped and I heard dead silence. I thought, and then I heard click, 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 click.
Yeah, it's that click,
it's
click, click
Friday.
thing that's bad.
Bad Friday.
Where are we? We got about 8 minutes before we need to wrap up. One of the things that I was commenting on is, because you were talking about the astrology and the numerology part, is that, when you do your birth chart, it says, well, this is what you came in with, but it doesn't mean that that's how you have to live your life. So if you have squares or oppositions, it's just going, here, these are things that you're going to need to overcome or deal with, if you want to be conscious about it, so that you can, but that becomes free will, although it could be something that you just let happen and not do anything with.
Yeah, and I think, maybe individually everybody has a different belief about this, but for me, I've always felt like it is that sort of hand-in-hand between having a sort of set path, but having a zillion different ways that you can get to that final destination. You have the destination of, like, going to Hawaii, but you can decide who you're going to go with, when you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and even decide not to go. And that ultimately that's what destiny and choice is all about. Preferably you want to reach your destiny, because you might be evolving to go on to the next incarnation with a higher destiny. So you kind of want to aspire to reach your destiny, but you don't have to.
Could you say that destiny is more of like a bigger picture thing, and then the choice is more how you navigate or not navigate to that destiny?
That's perfect. I mean, we make it so complicated. And what you just said is like a perfect, simple, understandable way of looking at this, and yet you'd be surprised how many people will take that simple concept and just sort of nitpick at it. And it's like, no, this is all it is. No, but fate is an extreme version. Fate is something that we really have come to understand may not be applicable. The idea that it's set in stone and you're doomed and you can never break out of that box that you've been put in. Destiny is more fluid. It's more malleable. It's more allowable for choice. I have a destiny. My destiny has always been to be a writer. I've known that since I was 2-3 years old. But I can choose not to write. I can choose to write different things. I can choose to, do whatever the hell I want, basically. And those choices are either going to get me closer to my destiny or they're going to keep me from it. So choice is very much an important part of determining whether or not you're going to do what you were put here to do, if that's what you believe.
But haven't you found, either personally or through your research, that if you are not, I like to say listening to your inside, listening to the guidance that you're being given, which I'm assuming is taking you to achieve your destiny, whatever that is, and many of us don't really know, that if you choose to not, you get your butt kicked?
Yeah. You're going to have challenges no matter what. 'Cause people will say, well, I feel like I'm on my path, but life is hard. Well, nobody said it was going to be easy. But you're absolutely right. I think, when I've made choices that went against what I knew my destiny was, I suffered emotionally, romantically, financially, and the worst thing of all, I missed opportunities that would never, maybe would never come back, or I would have to really fight for even 3 times harder. There's that 3 again. So yeah, you're right. It's the quality of your choices will determine how quickly you reach your destiny, whether you actually do or not. How much the ability to live authentically as you do. I think that's really, in a way, what destiny is about: is being the authentic human being you were put here to be. So your choices really have to align with that, because if they don't, you're going to be unhappy. You're going to be living somebody else's version or idea of your life.
And that's a bad thing.
No, it sucks.
And it's not really fun.
It's like, what's the point?
Well, and some people, I mean, I think that whole concept of becoming authentic has really become popular. I mean, I would assume it cycles around in time, but in the last, I'm not even going to say 10 years, has just become really popular where people are wanting to become more conscious in their lives as opposed to just going along and doing what other people tell them and not looking at why they're doing what they're doing and whether it has anything to do with them in the first place.
I think a lot of what's happening with, the economy and all of the strife and resistance and negativity is pushing people to either fall apart completely or fall apart to build themselves back together more authentically. And I'm seeing a lot of that. I wish I were seeing it more, but I think that's the exciting part is people tend to move towards authenticity in times of great duress. It's almost like, well, what have I got to lose? I might as well go for it. I lost my job. My relationship fell apart, but I didn't really like either. They weren't satisfying me or making me happy anyway. So why not now go for the life of my dreams, the person that I would really like to be with, the vocation I've always wanted to explore. Even during the Great Depression, people were successful. And even in this economy, every day I'm reading about people who are doing amazing things with their lives. They've lost their jobs, they've lost their homes, but instead of being beaten completely down, they're using it as an opportunity to find who the hell they really are. And it's like, okay, I've got nothing to lose. Now I can go be who that is. I think that's exciting.
Oh, exactly. But it also, it's such a learning experience that you have to have as well, or that you go through, as you have these new experiences and become more of who you really are.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. It's a good time to break down and be rebuilt. But if you're going to rebuild, just, rebuild the way you want to be, not based on what your society thinks or your family or spouse or whatever. It's authenticity is your choice.
Yeah. Marie, we have 2 minutes left, and I want to kind of go back to, to the ASPE Symposium, October 25th through 30th. And I know you're not going to be there, and I'm going to miss you, but what's Larry going to talk about?
I think he's going to talk about science and metaphysics, the science of the paranormal. I'm pretty sure that's the topic.
Oh, so you guys weren't... See, I thought you guys were speaking together.
No, originally I was going to do a workshop and he was going to speak. Things kind of just got really crazy. So I believe that his main topic, is the science of the paranormal. The quantum physics, all of that really cool stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll miss it. Oh, well, I get to talk to him all the time, though.
Well, I wonder if they're going to, film it or do anything like that. That would be really cool.
Yeah, sell a DVD of the whole program for people who can't go. I always thought that was such a good idea to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I always find that they have technical difficulties. Ooh, that word. Whenever I'm doing it. I think I bring my ghosts along, and they just, mess with stuff. Oops.
Yeah, I think so. But that happens to me a lot, too, so I'm thinking I may have a few.
Ooh, and then you put us both together? How scary.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Marie, the music's going to come up in a second. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Yeah,
now, I love having you on. I just am giving you a bad time.
No, it's always fun. Yeah, but I think we're so hot together that we just blew the...
That's
the
right.
That's what we did.
That's right. Okay, so I guess I'll be talking to you sometime in the summer when the new book comes out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Bye, Marie.
Bye-bye.
That was Marie Jones. Her book is The Trinity, as well as Destiny versus Choice. Her webpage, mariedjones.com. That's Marie with a D, Jones.com. And next week, I'll be speaking with Michael Ballestein about the supernatural world of the Iroquois and Edmund Gomez about cattle mutilations. So until next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita.